Hi guys. Hi everyone. Hi. Welcome guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi. Thanks for joining us. So I'm gonna wait maybe another minute. This is what we're painting, by the way. I'm gonna wait another 1 minute to see if maybe we're missing someone. Hopefully everyone joins us and then we're gonna start. So in the meantime, just make sure you have everything that you need. And I will talk about the list of supplies shortly. Again, we'll just wait 1 more minute and then we'll move on to discussion. We'll discuss oral supplies. We'll discuss how we're gonna do this as well and everything else. So yeah, very shortly. Yay! So excited you all are here, guys. This is gonna be fun. This is a super fun painting, like so fun. Any first timers? Anyone's first time today? Does someone has music with this? First timers, wow, congrats guys. This is gonna be great. That's awesome. I see that we have so many first timers here. Well guys, this is a perfect first timer painting actually, because it's not too complicated, but it's not too easy either. So you're gonna learn something, but also it's not going to be too overwhelming. It's not going to be way too much. So that's a good thing. And there are a couple different techniques here that we're going to cover. We're going to cover blending. We're going to cover like multiple color blending. We're going to cover clouds. Clouds are a big job by themselves. So again, that's something you're going to learn today. And we're going to do all those beautiful cattails. So we're going to do details. We're going to do blending. We're going to do clouds. Yay, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I think it's time for us to start. Welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone. If we haven't met before, my name is Vera. I'll be your instructor for today, and we're painting this wonderful, super pretty, very customizable painting. Now, again, feel free to either follow me precisely if you want to, or you can modify your colors. So, for example, here you can add a bit of purple or a bit more red to your background. You can add different colors into the sky and into the clouds. Again, you can add darker reds into your clouds. You can add some purples or even blues into sky, into clouds. You can do anything you can think of. You can add a dragonfly on top of one of those cattails. You can add a little sailing boat. I don't know. Anything you can think of, you can do it. What we're going to need today, we're going to start with a canvas. So you're going to need a canvas. I will be using that. It's the same size as this one. This is 12 by 16 inch. You don't have to use the exact same size. You're free to use absolutely any size. And you don't even have to use canvas. You can use acrylic paper. You can use multimedia paper. Whatever you have, you can use it. Just keep in mind, the bigger you go, the longer it's going to take you and the harder it's going to be. So if this is your first time, maybe don't go as big. This size is good for first timers, but sometimes we paint on like that size, for example, or this size. That is 16 by 20 inch. Those are quite big. So maybe if this is your first time, go smaller than that. This is a good size, or even smaller than this is totally fine as well. Yeah, just make sure you adjust the brushes based on the size of your canvas. I will be suggesting brushes based on the size of my canvas. So I'll be suggesting based on 16 by 12 inch. Now, next thing we're going to need is a palette or something to mix our paint on. Of course, we're going to need a paint. I will be using primary colors only, which is white, black, yellow, blue, and red. And I will be mixing all of them into all shades of this. And for those of you who are wondering what brand of paint I'm using, because we get that question a lot, what brand I'm using. I'm using Start Acrylics paint. Yeah, student grade acrylic brand Start. Again, this is not a promotion. They don't pay us for it. It's just because you guys ask very often, and we would highly recommend this paint. It's also very cheap for the value and for the amount. So if you have it nearby, use it. If not, any similar quality student grade acrylic will work just fine. Professional acrylic, if you have it and you have access to it, absolutely. You might find it a little hard because it's a little thicker, plus it's way more expensive. So again, any acrylic technically will work. Now, if you don't have primary colors, that's okay. You can use pre-mixed colors for these paintings. And if you're using pre-mixed colors, you're going to need pinky orange or pink. You can substitute this. You can go either way. You can do orange here. You can do pink here. Both will work. Then yellowy orange. Then yellow. You're going to need green. You're going to need white. You're going to need black. That's pretty much it. If you have red or burgundy, that would be a good addition. But if you don't, that's okay too. Sorry, guys, I see your questions. I'm going to check them out in a second. Once you start painting, I will go back in chat and I will answer all the questions that you have there. So those are our paints. Of course, we're going to need water. It's hard to paint without water, so make sure you have some. And we're going to need a couple different brushes. For me personally, I'm going to be using 3 different brushes. If you have more than that, great. You can use more than 3 brushes. Doesn't have to be just 3. But it's good to have at least 3 brushes. I will be using large, medium, and small. In my case, my large brush is square. And with this brush, we're only going to do background. So we're going to do that blending from that corally color into yellowy orange, into yellow, then back to yellowy orange, then back to coral. So all that we're going to do with a big brush. In my case, it is square. Yours doesn't have to be square. That's not, the shape doesn't affect it at all. Now, I have also this medium square brush that I will be using. And what I'm going to be using it for is clouds. So you're free to use medium square brush if you have it. If not, you can use medium pointy. Again, doesn't really matter what shape your brush is. The only thing I would say for clouds is you might want to use the brush that's in the worst shape. So if, let's say, you have a new set of brushes and an old, almost need to be thrown out set of brushes, those may be very good for your clouds. You don't need a perfect brush for clouds. You actually need a better brush because it's going to make your life easier. But if you only have good brushes, again, that's a good problem to have. So don't worry about that. And medium brush I'm going to be using for this little fluff on a background. And a small brush I'm going to be using for all those brush strokes of our cattails and grass. So that's all going to be done with a small brush. Alternatively, if you have a really nice medium brush, you can do a little bit with a medium brush, a little bit with a small brush. So that's pretty much breakdown on our small brushes. And most important of all of those brushes is a small brush. You need to have a good detailed small brush because there are a lot of details. If you don't have a good brush, you're likely going to struggle making those fine lines. So make sure your small brush has a nice pointy tip to it. So that's important. And we're going to need another thing. We're going to need a piece of paper towel. So any piece of paper towel or napkin or toilet paper will work. And we're just going to use it to dab off our brushes on it. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys have all of that. Now let me tell you how we're going to do this. We're going to start with the lightest color, which is this light yellow. And then we're going to work lightest color, then yellow. So light yellow, then yellow from the sides, from the top and the bottom, then light orange, then dark coral pink-ish orange. We're going to blend it to the top first, then we're going to blend it to the bottom, or at the same time, top and the bottom doesn't really matter. Color this background flat and have a nice transition. After that, we're going to move to our clouds. So our clouds we're going to do in 2 colors as well. We're going to start with this peachy coral color. And then after that, we're going to make it a little redder by adding a little bit more red or pink to it. And then, do you see this darkness? We're going to add a little bit of that darker color in our clouds. Once we have that final color we're going to add is going to be this white or light yellow. Either will work really well. Highlight on top of, on the bottom of our cloud. So right here, right here, right there, right there, right there, right there. And as we do all that, as we use certain colors, we're going to add a couple of brush strokes on the bottom because there will be darker colors coming from the sides, just like a flick here, flick there, flick here, flick there. And we'll add a couple of flicks in the middle as well. And of course, we'll add our sun just as a circle in white. After we finished that beautiful, colorful background, we're going to start moving to darker colors. And the first color we're going to do is going to be burgundy. It's going to be on a background there. So that's just red mixed with a tiny touch of black. And we're going to dab up a bit of that color there. And right after that, we're going to go over it with black, and we're going to dab up black. Do you see there's a touch of that red burgundy on top? It's not just solid black. And what it does, it makes it look like it's really glowing, like that sunset color is reflecting on the leaves and on the trees in the distance. And once we have that, we're going to move on to our grass, and we're going to flick it with our small or medium brush, but likely small, from the bottom up. We'll build that all in black. We'll add our cattails, and then we'll do 2 more layers. We'll do 1 layer in green and 1 layer in white. And that would be it. After that, we are fully finished. So we'll just sign it, and that will be it. We'll hang it on the wall. So now, what are we going to start with? Grab your canvas and put on your palette. If you're using primaries, you're going to need yellow, white, and red, and that's it. If you're using primaries. If you're using pre-mixed paints, you're going to need light yellow, dark yellow, light orange, coral. So those colors. Put them on your palette. I already have them on my palette here, actually. So I'm just going to continue going with the same palette that I used when I was making the sample for tonight. So I'm going to take some white, put it on a side. Then to that white, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, mix it up, make nice, fairly light yellow. It doesn't have to be like a pastel yellow, but just lighter than what yellow would look like unmixed with white. And I will start adding it, I would say a little bit lower than halfway through. So if this is my halfway through, somewhere right here, maybe about 1/3 from the bottom, somewhere around that. So right here, I'm going to add, with my large brush, quite a few brush strokes of yellow. I'm going to move this painting a little lower so you can see it better. All right, and once we have that yellow, we're going to move on to straight yellow. So we're going to take yellow not mixed with white, so darker yellow. Again, don't intentionally darken it up by adding any other color to it, just straight yellow. This time, just without mixing of any white. Guys, it's completely up to you what yellow you would like to use. It's not going to ruin your painting regardless of what yellow you use. In my case, it actually just calls bright yellow. That's all it is. But whatever yellow you have, use that one. For this painting, it doesn't affect it. It doesn't make any difference. So now, I'm going to flick my straight yellow, not mixed with white, from the sides. Do you see? Like that. Do you see now it gets darker on the side and lighter in the middle? And that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here. And I'm going to do the same thing from the other side as well. I'll flick that straight yellow so it is darker on the sides, lighter in the middle. And just a little bit of it on the bottom and just a little bit of it on the top. Do you see? It looks like there's a lighter section right in the middle here. And then, guys, I will give you a minute here, but we're going to need to move to our next color pretty fast because all this blending needs to be done on wet. We can't really wait for our paint to dry because it's much harder to blend, especially the background, on dry. It's much easier to blend on wet. So as soon as you have it, it's best if we move to next color right away. But I will give you 1 minute before we move to next step. Hi, guys. So nice to see many familiar names and faces. For those of you who are painting with us for the first time, yes, the video will stay right here. It's not going anywhere after the live event is done. It's all getting recorded, so the video will be right here. Just come back here whenever you're ready. If today, for example, you don't have paint or you come and prepare or something came up, or again, you have young kids or anything, like whatever may prevent you from staying the entire event. Actually, it likely is going to be less than full 2 hours. It's likely going to be about 1.5 hours because this painting is on an easier side. But yes, if you can't stay the entire event, that's totally fine. Just come back whenever you're ready. It's going to be right here, and you can rewatch it as many times as you want. My small brush size is 0, but you're welcome to use any brush that has a pointy tip. That's what most important is for small brushes, pointy tip. As long as they have that nice detailed pointy tip, they'll give you beautiful details, regardless of the number. I can do the same details with a 10 brush as long as it has the tip. Can you buy those paint at Michael's? We buy those particular brand at Curry's, but Michael's does have a variety of student grade acrylics that are pretty good. Like, for example, Artist Loft. Artist Loft is pretty good acrylic as well. We actually use it from time to time. It's not my personal favorite, but only because it's quite thick. So you have to water down Artist Loft. Otherwise, it's just too thick to work with. So if you decide to go with Artist Loft, which Michael's does sell, you're gonna need to water it down. But it is a good quality paint, so if that's what's available to you and the price is okay with you, go for it. It is a good paint. All right, let's move to our oranges because my paint starts to dry up a little bit and we don't want it to dry. We want to move on while all this is still wet. So what are we going to do? I'm going to dip my brush in the water because, again, we're working on the background, so we need to use quite a bit of water here. So dip your brush in the water, then scoop some yellow on the side. I'll put it right here. And then to that yellow, I will add just a touch of white and just a touch of red. And you see, I'm mixing all this and it's turning into nice light orange. And that would be our next color. So just yellow with a touch of white and a touch of red. And with this color, I'm gonna go first right above my yellow here. I'll add a strip of this color. And right after I added it, I'm gonna start blending it down. So how do I blend it down? There are two different ways to blend it. One is with a clean wet brush, but that's not what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna continue going with the same brush. I'm just not gonna refill it with paint. So I'm gonna use this very little bit of paint that I have left because I mostly used up all my paint here. So with whatever little I have left, I'm just gonna continue going over this still wet yellow. And you see what it does? It creates a very light brush strokes. And the reason why it creates those light brush strokes is because A, I don't have too much paint on my brush left. I only have a touch left. And B, that yellow is still wet. So my brush is not just leaving the paint on, it also is picking yellow. So it is mixing as we go. So again, I'm gonna start on top. I will take a bit more paint, go back on top, add a bit more, and again, spread it down without refilling my brush. And sometimes you would notice I would go a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit down. And the reason why is, again, while this is wet, our brush would be picking up that yellow. Do you see on the tip of my brush, there's lots of yellow. As I go down, because this is still wet, my brush is now picking up yellow. So now I want to spread that yellow up. So that's why I'm going to go up, right, to leave the yellow on a canvas and pick up some orange. Now my brush picked up orange, so now I'm going to go down and so on. And you just continue going up and down. That's why we want to blend on wet, because once your paint dries, you can't do this anymore. You can only do this on wet while both colors are wet. So your brush will be picking up a little bit of this, spreading it up, a little bit of that, spreading it down. And I'm going to do this right away with the bottom. So I'll make a little bit more paint because I don't have much left. And it doesn't have to perfectly match the color on top. If it's slightly different, no problem at all. So I'm going to go on the bottom. Actually, I'm going to even go right here. So do you see I'm crossing my yellow at about 1/3 of the canvas? So at around 1/3-ish. You see, from the bottom, 1/3 from the bottom. I'm adding line, and then I'm going to lightly spread it. I'm not looking for a perfect blending here. You see, I'm just adding a couple brush strokes, going down. I'm not trying to blend it perfectly. I still want to see some yellow. And as I go to the bottom here now, I'm going to color in the rest of that white canvas with this orange. You see, it turned into more like a brushstrokey blending, which is great, which is exactly what we want. This is like a good backdrop for our water here. And again, I'll give you guys a second, but again, I can't give you too long because we need to move to our next color before this one dries. While it's still super wet, we can wait another minute. All right, so I'm seeing some questions here in regard to paint. There is a store, there is a Curry's in Whitby, but also Curry's has an online store where you can order. When the lockdown, I actually don't know if Curry's in Whitby is open right now. What I did when the lockdown just started, I ordered lots and lots of those jars from Curry's website. So not specifically from the Whitby store, but from their warehouse. And it took them a while to get to me. It actually took them almost a month to get to me. But it was worth the wait because I ordered a whole bunch that will last me for a long, long time. So yeah, so that's that. No, to answer your question, you don't need to wait to go to the next color. If you're ready, you can move right ahead. I'm only waiting to make sure everyone is caught up so we don't lose all of you guys behind or half of you behind at all the steps. So that's why I'm waiting. Usually if I was just painting by myself and it wasn't a tutorial, I would be moving right to the next one, right to the next one. With blending, the wetter, the better. So ideally, you want to actually move right to the next one. Which reminds me, let's move to the next one. So I'm going to dip my brush in the water again. And if you still have a little bit of paint, you can mix on exact same spot. So you don't have to you don't waste any of this paint because it's a perfect mixing base. If you don't, you're going to start from scratch. And again, we'll make pretty much the same color. So we'll start with yellow, some red, and this time you're going to add more, some yellow, some white, and this time you're going to add way more red. So you add still kind of the same amount of yellow and white. It's very important that there is some white in there because if you don't add white, it's going to end up like a fiery orange, which is great color. But we're trying to make it with a hint of pink to it, with like a tiny tint of pink or like a coral color. And for that, you need to add a little bit of white. So this is my color. It's just a really beautiful coral color. So I'm going to go with this right on top, and I'll finish up this top, and then I'll blend it into this light orange. So do you see? I'm going here. I need more paint. Let's make a little more. So I'm coloring, I'm overlapping my orange a little bit, and then I'm spreading it down without filling my brush with paint. So the same way that we merged our light orange and yellow, the same way I'm going to merge this into the light orange now. So make sure your brush doesn't have too much paint left. If it does, you can even clean it up a little bit, get rid of most of the paint so it doesn't have too much left, because otherwise you're just going to continue coloring instead of blending. You need to have next to no paint left in your brush to start blending. So now that I emptied my brush a little, made sure I don't have too much left, I'm going to continue going down. And you see now I'm only spreading very little bit of that paint down. And again, you're not going to go all the way down that orange section. So my orange section was from here, that light orange, from here to I would say around here. You're not going to go all the way down. You're going to go maybe halfway down, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but not all the way. And then you're going to start going up again. And then you're going to get not all the way up until around here, then down again. And again, not all the way down, just a little bit lower, and then up again, and so on until you create a nice transition. In my case, 2 times up and down was more than enough, but you see for yourself and see how much your painting needs. And again, as soon as you have that, you can take a little bit of that paint and go on the very bottom now and add it right over that orange on the bottom. And just spread it up a little. We're not trying, again, to create a perfect blending here. It's more of a brush strokey blending. We just need to have a little bit of that color on the very bottom. So you're not going to see much of it in the end, so don't worry about it being blended or not blended. Streaks are good. All right, and I'm going to wash off my large brush as soon as I have that, because I am not going to be using my large brush anymore. I'm done with that brush. So I'm going to put it aside, but make sure it's clean before you do that. So wash it, put it aside. And I will give you guys now a couple minutes to do this, because now we don't need to blend anything else on wet. That's all we needed to do on wet. The rest is going to be done on dry. So take your time, just whenever you have it, let me know. You can just do thumbs up emoji, you can say good to go, ready, and so on. And that way I would know that we are ready to move to next step, and then we'll move to next step. All right, I see some not readies and some readies. Thanks, guys. I am glad to see many of us are ready. But yeah, we'll wait a couple more minutes. Yes, good. Great. I see lots of good to goes and readies. That is absolutely perfect. So now we can add a little bit of white right here. Do you see how this is lighter? So that's what we want to do. So I'm not going to be using large brush anymore. I'm going to take my medium brush and I'm going to take a little bit of white. So here is my medium brush. Here is some white, and I'm going to lightly dry brush it on somewhere around here. We're not trying to create this whole section blobby color, that section blobby in white. We just want to lighten it up a little. So make sure you only use a very little bit of paint, or you might even want to water you down a little bit and maybe make it a little bit more transparent. Or if it happened a little more blobby for you, so you added a couple of brush strokes and you realize that it looks quite blobby, you can always wash off your brush, dry it on a paper towel, and then go with a clean wet brush and just smudge it around and blend it a little bit. We're just trying to lighten up that section just a touch. That's all we want here. Nothing too crazy. Okay, now to answer your questions, did I put a base color down? No, we started with a white canvas. And the top color, I'll repeat what made it. It was yellow, red, and white. Majority of it is red, but with pinker red. If you have actual red, it could be just red. And if you have more like a fire truck red that already has a tint of yellow pre-mixed into it, you can just add a bit of white and it will bring you right here. If you're using primary red or magenta-based red, like I am using, because I'm using more of a magenta-based red, it's still primary red, but it really is, if you look at it close, it's almost like a dark, dark pink. So if you're using that, then you're going to mix some yellow into it and white. And it should bring you into similar kind of color. If you're a little bit more on the pinker side, that's all good. If it's a little more on a burning orange side, that's good too. So don't worry about that if it's not exactly the same. Now, as far as edges, good question. If you want your edges done, you can paint them right away. I'm not going to be painting them right away because I'm holding my canvas a lot of the time, but you can always paint them. So just whatever color comes to the edge, you can wrap it around the edge, yellow, orange here, or you can always do that later. The only problem with doing it later, you're going to need to mix all those colors again to color match it and to wrap it around your edges. Or alternatively, once we finish, you can take black paint and do all the edges in black. I personally love doing edges in black. Half of the time I would do them as I go so they look like they match, but usually when I'm not teaching, because when I'm teaching I'm not holding it. When I am teaching it, I'm holding it. So it ends up all over my hand in the end and not that much on the canvas. So good way to do it is just do black in the end too. So either is fine, you choose. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same brush, medium, and I will make a little bit more of that corally color, the one that we have right on top. Again, if it doesn't match perfectly and your color ends up a little different, not a big deal. So I'm just going to take some yellow, some red, some white, mix them up, try to match it to the best of my ability. This is the color I made. It's pretty close to the color I started with, so it should be good. And now we're going to start dry brushing the clouds on top. So the dry brushing technique is you are going to use a very little bit of paint, as little as you can. Sometimes what I would do, you can either start by taking very little bit of paint on your brush, or you can take what you can and then you can dry it up, dab it off on a paper towel to get rid of that extra paint, because extra paint is going to give you blobs. Blobs are something we don't want. We want very, very fluffy light clouds. And also you can use two brushes. You can do just one brush. That's what I'm going to be doing, just one. But if you find that it doesn't work for you, you can grab second brush and you can do, ideally of the same size or similar, and you can do brush strokes with this, but then you can blend with a clean brush, clean dry or clean slightly wet for fluffier texture, or you can even grab your finger and blend with your finger. We just want very nice, light and fluffy clouds. Now let me show you the clouds here. You see, we're going to start with the bottom, and you see they're very small. So they're horizontal and quite thin. So we're going to start with those. And you're going to reserve that space in the bottom. So don't add any more here. Add mostly from the sides. You can add a few closer to the middle, but not too many, and leave this space uncovered. So we'll add some here, and as we go up, thicker, higher, taller, fluffier. And you see now these two are the thickest and the fluffiest. So that's what we're going to do. Guys, if you're having any technical difficulties, just refresh the page. That usually solves it. All right, so I'm going to use the top edge of my medium square brush. So do you see, if I use my brush like that, full width, it gives me really thick lines. But if I use the top edge, it gives me nice thin lines. So I'm going to go with that, nice thin lines, because those clouds, the first clouds, need to be very thin. And I'm going to do them as a combination of a few little brush strokes. Now, again, very little bit of paint and a nice light touch. You almost like scraping the surface of the canvas. You don't want to have a harsh lines. And if the harsh line happened, you can always smudge it with either finger or with a separate brush. So do you see? That's my first cloud. It's just made out of a combination of horizontal little lines. I'll add one more small one, a little lower. And a slightly bigger one right here. Now to see how transparent they are. You can see everything through them. That's because I'm using very little of paint and I'm not pushing it. I'm just lightly rubbing it over the top of the canvas. And again, feel free to use a finger to smudge it if you need to, or separate brush. Yay, Adam, I'm glad to hear that. So do you see I added some on the side? Now we're going to add some on the other side. They don't have to be the same at all. Just the same principle. They need to be a little bit bigger, a little thicker, closer to the edge, and then a little thinner, closer to the middle. And alternatively, what you could do, you could also do in a circular motion. So what I'm doing is just horizontal brush strokes, but you could do this. Let me show you in circular motion. You see? Either will work. Brush strokey, like little circles, all of that is very good. Or you can do mix and match. A couple of brush strokes like that, a couple of brush strokes like that. The goal is to have them nice and light and fluffy, but how you get there doesn't matter. Whatever brings you there, it's all good. So now I'll add a little bit in the middle too, just a little. Maybe just like a very small ones here too. And then refill your brush as needed. Just make sure you only take a little bit every single time. So now I'm gonna start going higher and having my bigger cloud. So I'm gonna start right here. Again, you can do circular brush strokes, you can do more like horizontal brush strokes on an angle, doesn't matter. You see it at a cloud, it's thicker here and has a nice pointy tip. And notice that applies to all my clouds. They all have a really nice pointy tip on the sides. So they're fluffier wherever their middle is, even the small ones. And they have nice tips, like nice ends. That's what you want with all your clouds. So that's my one. I'm gonna add a second one somewhere right here. It doesn't matter how many exactly clouds you're gonna end up with in the end, as long as you love the positioning of them and they look nice and fluffy. That's mostly what matters here. You can have exact same amount that I do, or you can have completely different amount, and that's okay. So now I'm gonna move to this middle one. I'll add one in the middle, a little bit to the side, not maybe exactly in the middle. Right here. And then we'll finish with two more on top. And that would be all for my clouds. And if you guys have any questions in regard to clouds, feel free to ask. And again, we're using the same exact color that we used on top, nothing different. And we'll do one more here. And you can hardly see it at this point because it blends with the background, as it should. That was the goal, so it's all good. If you're struggling with clouds, let me know exactly what the problem is. What do they look like to you? So I can see that some of you saying that they don't look fluffy, but what do they look like? Because based on what exactly they look like, I can suggest you how to fix that. But usually if they don't look fluffy, there could be two things going wrong. One of them, let me finish my last cloud and then I'm gonna show you on a separate piece of paper maybe, or in the back of my canvas, what can go wrong and how to fix it. All right, so here are all my clouds. I will give you guys a bit more time, so no rush at all. But while you're working on that, let me show you what can go wrong and how to fix it. So, what can go wrong? Number one, you have too much paint on your brush. So I took lots of paint and I'm going to start doing this. And you see, it doesn't look transparent. So with too much paint, you might end up with like a very harsh lines around your cloud. So it's going to look like more of a cutout or even a cartoony in a way. So if that's what your looks like, that the problem is you have too much paint on your brush. You need to have literally no paint on your brush. So you see when I do this on my hand, you see how a little bit of a mark it leaves? Next to nothing. That's how much paint you need to have on your brush. If you go over a surface and it leaves more paint than that, you have too much paint on your brush. Even if it's like that, so even if it's like this, that's too much paint on your brush. It has to be that. So just try out somewhere on a different surface, on your palette, on a separate piece of paper, on your hand, like I'm doing right now, and see if that's not what you're having, you have too much paint on your brush. Now, option number two, or what can go horribly wrong, even if you have just the right amount of paint on your brush, what can go wrong is you're not making the edge uneven. Do you see how in my case the edge is uneven? There's no evenness to it. It's up and down and up and down, and it has this texture and a beautiful flow to it. Now, even if you use a little bit of paint on your brush, so this time I'm going to use just a touch of paint, and you do it just like I told you. Do you see how light? But your edge is even. This looks weird. It doesn't have that fluffiness to it. And the reason why is because, do you see the edge is just even? You just need to mess it up. You need to create some areas that are higher, certain areas that are lower. It should go up, it should go down, it should have more interesting texture. You can even add certain areas that are completely not connected to the cloud. So for example, a smidge here and there under, or smidge here and there over. They're either somewhat connected or not connected to it. That will look more natural. So again, if you find that your cloud has more of a straight line around it, mess it up. And another option of what can go wrong is cotton ball clouds. If your cloud looks like this, like an egg, or like that, now the problem is the shape. What you need in that case, how to fix it, is you create the edges. You can't take away. What you put on your canvas, that's what you already have there. You can't remove it. So what you need to do is you need to add the pointy tips on the sides and unevenness to the edge of the cloud. You see, I'm adding the tips on the sides. So now my middle is fluffier. My sides gradually get thinner, and add unevenness. And also you can even add a little bit of second layer in certain areas in the middle to create depth. We will actually go over them with another color to create depth, but I hope this makes sense. I know it's not a perfect surface of a canvas because it's quite textury, so my paint is not going as it would be on the front of the canvas, but I hope this makes sense, and I hope you find where you land here as far as mistakes and know how to fix them. Yes, that is a good advice here in chat. Sometimes if you look a step back and look at your cloud, sometimes if you take a step back and look at your clouds from further away, you realize them better than you think. 100% agree with that. Yes, definitely. Paintings are not meant to be looked at this close. When you look this close, all you see is what's wrong with it. You don't see the bigger picture. So it is really is a good advice to walk away from it. Couple steps, couple meters, and look from the distance. Yeah, that's actually good advice too. Take a picture on your phone. I do that too a lot actually, especially when I paint more of an abstract paintings, because I can't really tell if I love it or I hate it. Sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, I don't know, I kind of love it, but I kind of hate it at the same time. I don't know if it's good or not. So taking photo on your phone and actually looking on your phone for some weird reason helps. So yes, thank you for that. I appreciate that. You saying that in chat. Definitely. Always take a photo on your phone if you're not sure, or if you're not sure where to add what and what's missing, take a photo on your phone. For some reason, it's just more obvious on a phone when you look on your screen of what is wrong and how to fix it. And guys, we're not done with clouds, so let's move to our next step for clouds. And what are we going to do now to the same color we just used, if you have it. If you don't have it, we'll make it again. So in my case, I don't have it. This is next to nothing. I need more of it. So I'm going to start with white. I'll put some white, some yellow, and some red. Again, just to make the same color, or as close as I can to it. This is pretty close to that color. And now, to this color, I'm going to add lots more red. You see? And this would be the next color we're going to go with. Or pink. You can do pink too. Again, just a reminder, my red is more like a magenta red. So it really is a dark pink versus more of a fire truck red. So you can use dark pink instead. Whenever I say red, dark pink will work. And again, we need to dab off our brush on a paper towel so it doesn't have too much paint on it. This time you can use a little bit more paint, but not a lot. And I'm going to start adding it. I'm not going to add it to all the clouds. I'm going to start with the top clouds and make my way down. If your top clouds are still wet, that's actually a good thing. That's not a problem. I might need a little more red because I just tried a smidge and you can't really see it. So I'm just going to add a bit more red to the same color, and that will fix my problem. You see? Now you can see it. And again, add it a little bit in the middle of your cloud and either blend it with the same brush, blend it with another brush, blend it with a finger, whatever works for you. See, just a little more darkness. And I'm going to add just a little more darkness to this one too. And this one. We're not trying to go right to the edges. Again, don't go to the edges. Mostly just a little in the middle to make it look like you're fluffier and lighter and more transparent around the edge and have this thicker, more solid middles. So do you see I added them onto these bigger clouds? Now for the smaller clouds, I will add just a little bit, mostly closer to the edge, just a touch, but not a lot. And you don't have to do that on all the small clouds. You can just choose a few. That's enough. I'm not going to be adding it into all those clouds. It's not really necessary to add it everywhere. All right, so I'll give you guys a couple minutes, and again, whenever you have it, give me thumbs up so I know that we are ready. And then we'll move to our bottom part because I'm still going to add a little bit of that color onto this bottom here. So we'll do that. But again, whenever you're ready. In the meantime, I'm going to go wash my hands because I keep showing everything on my hands as a palette and a canvas and painting surface. So yeah, I will be right back, hopefully with a clean hands. All right, I'm back and my hands are clean. Okay, so I see a lot of us are ready. So I'm going to take my medium brush again and the same color that we just used for the clouds. And we'll add just a little bit of that on the very bottom here. Plus, what else we're going to do is we're going to flick it from the sides. So using just a touch of paint again. And I'm going to be using the top edge of my medium brush. So remember how I showed you that if I use just the top edge, my lines are finer versus using the entire brush because then they're thicker. So using just the top edge, I'm going to flick some of this paint from the edges in. And some from the side too. Again, very lightly. And don't do all those flicks the same size. Make some longer, some shorter. Variety is very important here. You need to have some longer, some shorter. You can't do all of them at the same size because it's not going to look natural if you do. And after that, guys, we're going to move to our white. So I'm going to take some white on my medium brush again and using the top edge of my brush, I'm going to add it right in the middle here. So I'm going to add a little path. Don't use too much paint just yet. We're still going to go second layer here later. So on the second layer, you can use a little more paint. Now just make sure it's nice and light. And then we're going to start adding lightness to our clouds. And you can use either white or you can use light yellow. And the differences are, if you use white, it's going to be a little more contrast. And you can easier mess up white than light yellow. Because if you use light yellow, it's going to be a little more blended to the background and it's not going to be as contrast, and therefore it actually is a little bit easier to work with light yellow, because in case you mess it up, you're not going to see it. It's not going to bother your brain as much as if you do it in white and mess it up, because white is more contrast, so it's going to be a bit more visible. But completely up to you. I'm going to go with white. Light yellow is an option too. And you're just going to take, again, just a touch of paint on your brush, not a lot, and you're going to go underneath your clouds. And I'm going to start with those higher up clouds. So right here, and you see this time I'm not doing those brush strokes. I'm doing more like outline in a way, but very light, and I'm using the full width of brush because I want it fairly thick, but I do want it very transparent as well. So I'm gonna be smudging it with my finger right away. So as soon as I put brush stroke, I'm not adding anything else. I'm just gonna smudge it first, and only after that move to the next cloud or the next brush stroke. So do you see just a touch here? Now this one I will add a bit here too. Some lightness there, now some lightness underneath this cloud. It's like I'm making a wave in a way. And this clouds. But I'm gonna add this lightness under every single cloud. So I'm not avoiding any of the clouds. I'm adding a little bit less closer to the edges. Do you see most of it is around this midsection because the sun is gonna be here. So it makes sense. And then to finish this up, we're going to take lots of white on our medium brush. And we're going to add our sun right in the middle, very blobby in a way. I'm not trying to make it transparent. It's not the goal. And now you can do second layer here in like more blobby white in a way. And feel free to use small brush for this if you want. I'm still using the top edge of my medium brush, but do you see? It gives me fairly fine lines, so it's not as thick as before. And that is pretty much it for our background. So after this, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes, no rush. And then we're gonna move on to our dark colors here. So we're gonna move to burgundy. We'll add a bit of burgundy there. And then we'll move to black. And then we'll add a little bit of green and a little bit of white. Just let me know when you guys have it ready. Give me thumbs up, say good to go, and so on. Sun is just white, for those who are wondering. Yes, good. Awesome. See lots of readies and good to goes. That's perfect. And guys, remember, if you're not ready yet, you can always pause this video or rewind to the beginning. Even as we are live, you can still rewind to the beginning and rewatch certain sections. And also once we finish that, the video is going to be here. So no rush. It doesn't have to be done at the same speed that I am painting. I know some of you might find it a little fast. Hopefully majority of you will still follow along life, but if you need to take a break or if something comes up, you can always go back to it. All right, so I see lots of us are good to go and ready, which is perfect, which means we're gonna move to our burgundy. So what are we gonna do in burgundy is this line right here. So what are we gonna do? We'll take our medium brush. Actually, I need more red, so let me put some red on my palette. Then I'm gonna take some of this red, put it on the side, and to this red, I'm gonna add just a tiny dot of black. So very small dot, because if you add too much, it's gonna turn it into black, and you don't want that. You need it to just get a little bit darker. See, almost like a wine color. And we're only going to use a little bit of paint on our brush as well. So again, if you need to dab it off on a paper towel, do that. And once you have that, I'm going to be using, so here, to do this step, I'm going to be using my square medium brush flat. However, if you're not using square brush, if you're using pointy brush, you can use it like that. You don't need to use it flat. So for flat brushes, go flat. For pointy brushes, go with a point. And I'm going to start dabbing it right here. And you see how textury my dabs are? That's what you want the texture. So that's why if you have a really bad brush in a horrible shape, that would be the best brush for you to use here. And you see, as I go to the sides, go a little bit higher up. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. So something like that. And then as soon as we have that, you can move to straight black and take straight black on the same brush. And we'll start by putting a line in straight black, just horizontally, one line. And then from that line up, we're gonna dab some black. And you don't want to cover up all your burgundy. You want to see some of it, but you do want to get pretty close to it with your black. And here you don't have to use just a little bit of paint. You can use quite a bit of paint because you see you need it pretty solid here. And after that, you can wash off your medium brush. We're not really going to be doing much with it, at least not yet. So feel free to wash it off and put it aside. And again, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes. When you have it, let me know. And we're going to move on to the rest of our details in black, and we're going to do them with a small brush. That's funny. You see wine? I see wine too. Let me show it to you closer. I'm actually going to be teaching that wine tomorrow on Zoom. And now, great mind things alike. You spot wine, I spot wine. Yep, that's the wine. We'll be doing that one on Zoom tomorrow. If you need a link, I can send you a link. Just let me know. You're very welcome, guys. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you're enjoying this. All right, I will post that then. All right, for those who are interested in that wine event, I just posted a link to the wine event in chat. So if you look right now, you will see it. It's there. But if you can't see it for whatever reason, if you just go to our website, which is artistspalettedurham.com, with artists with S, paletteDurham.com, you will see it under events. No template. It's actually easier than you think. So yeah, nothing to worry about. Just make sure you bring a pencil. Yeah, if you use too much black, it's hard to fix. You can still fix it by probably adding a little bit of white, but you're gonna need to wait until it dries. So just wait until it dries. You can't do anything until it dries. All right, I see that a lot of us are ready. So we're gonna move to our details. And for that, we're gonna use a black and small brush. And it's very important that your black is liquid enough. Even if you have the best brush in the world, if your paint is too thick, you're not going to be able to do good details. So you really need to water down your paint. If your paint comes liquid enough for you to use it, that's fine. You don't have to do it. But by my experience, no paint comes liquid enough to use it. At least not the paint that I use. And I use a lot of different brands. And none of them are liquid enough to just be used for details without watering down. So I highly suggest that you water down your paint. Like that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going with my brush into the water, picking up a drip of the water, putting it into black, mixing it, and so on until I have a nice liquid paint. Because, and the reason why is, your brush can only hold so much. Because it's such a small brush, if you start painting with a thick paint, it's going to run out of it in one, maybe half inch. You need to make lines that are half of this canvas long in one brush stroke. If you use thick paint, you're going to run out of paint right here. And it's going to be blobby. It's not going to allow you to spread it because it's going to be spreading it thicker. For you to spread it all the way, you need to be spreading thinner layer of it. And watered down paint allows you to do that. So I have my watered down paint, I have my brush, and I'm going to start flicking. So from here, from the edge, you see, it's very important that you flick from the edge and from the bottom. Never, never flick from the inside. Don't flick from here in, out, always from the outside in, always, always, always. Because wherever you start, you're going to have the thickest area, and wherever you end, you're going to have the thinnest, and all your brush strokes need to be very thin on the end. So we're going to continue doing that, and we'll add some from the bottom as well. And as we go closer to the middle, they're going to be getting shorter and shorter and shorter until they get super, super short. You see some real shorties there. But once I have quite a bit on the side, I'm going to move on to the other side. And notice there's still gaps here, and that's okay. I'm going to deal with the gaps later with a different brush. You don't need to fill it in fully. Just have enough of those grasses. Now, for those of you who are wondering about the size of my brush, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video, the size doesn't matter. In my case, it's 0, and 0 is the smallest brush that you can find, so use 0 if you have it. But really, if you don't have 0, but if you have the brush with a pointy tip, that's all that matters. I could do the exact same thing, and I'll actually show it to you. I'll prove my point. I can do the exact same thing with 14. This is 14. But do you see, it has a nice pointy tip. You see the tip of this brush? Really pointy. This is 14, big brush, really big. This is 0 for comparison. So I'm going to do now the same thing with 14, because it's not the size of the brush that matters, but the tip. If you have a pointy tip, you'll be able to do it. But of course, if you have 0, great, use 0. You see, that's with 14. You just need to push less. So you're using just the very tip of your brush. No problem. I know that's a question a lot of people always wonder about, the sizes of the brushes. And for certain things, like for example, for square brushes, the number matters because, well, it does. For the pointy brushes, not really. As long as they have the tip, the pointy tip, that's all that matters. That's why if you were to choose one brush to invest in, buy a brush with incredibly pointy tip. This set of brushes that I got, it's like a set of 16 or 14 brushes. I got it off Amazon. It was like 20 bucks or something. And they all have incredible pointy tip. And after we have that, we're going to fill in. Do you see the gaps here? That's where, what are we going to do now? We're going to attend those gaps. So I'm going to grab my medium square brush, and I'm just going to flick some black from the bottom up. And you see, it fills it in a little. And it looks pretty natural too, as long as you don't add it blobby, again, very, very lightly. Yes, if you guys just joining, start from the beginning because we are almost at the end here. So after that, we're going to add our 4 cattails. And specifically for them, I'm going to put a new lines. So I'm going to put 4 lines specifically for my cattails because I don't want to be trying to find 4 suitable ones here. And again, I'm going to use my small brush or any brush with a pointy tip and water down black. And I'm going to start with a small one, the line for it right here. Second one right here. Third one. And then the last one. And I can add them right away. So we'll just outline them first, and then I'm going to color them in with black. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. And they don't have, both sides don't have to match perfectly. That's not the goal. But I will add 4 of them on the other side too. Yes, you can definitely come back and watch it anytime. So here they are in black. So I'll give you guys a second to do this, and then we're going to move to our green and to our white. And those would be our finishing touches here. Okay, so, okay, let's talk the grass about more. If you guys still struggling with the grass, so just to go through what I already talked about as far as grass, use a brush with a pointy tip, very important. 2, water down your black, very important, water down your black. 3, always start from the bottom or the outside and flick it in. That way, wherever you start, it's going to be thicker, and that end is going to be nice and fine. Now, number 4, if you did all that and it's still not doing it for you, use your brush differently. Use it more flat. You don't want to be using it like this. You want to sometimes be using it like that. So you're going to use it flat most of the way, and then you're just going to flick. So you're going to do a different wrist move. So like that, flat, flat, flat. And when you get close to the where you want to end it, you flick. You use more of a tip just on the very end. So you don't do the entire brush stroke with a tip. You do the entire brush stroke with a side, and then you use the tip in the end. I hope that makes sense. So try that. If that doesn't work, I don't know. That's all I got. There could be a lot of other things. It could be just the pigment of your paint. It could be really your brush. Most of the time it is. But try this first and see if that works. All right, guys. And after that, I'm going to move to green. So I'm going to make my green very simple. And I'm going to use more like a cold, more of a minty almost green. So it's going to have a bit less yellow, a bit more blue. Green is just yellow and blue. In our case, we're going to need to add white because we're adding it over dark section. We're adding it over existing black. If we were using it on a white canvas, you don't need to add white. But because we're adding it over painted canvas, we have to add white. So I'm going to take some of that yellow, just a little bit. I don't need much. Then some blue and, of course, white. Oops. And mix it up. Yellow, blue, and white. In this case, you want to add quite a bit of blue and white and not as much yellow because we're looking for this cold minty color. If you use any other green, that's fine. It's not a problem. But I will be staying true to our sample and making more of a cold green. And then with this color, I'm going to add more grass. So the same way that we did grass before, I'm just going to flick some, and some of those will overlap the existing grass, and some of those will be a new addition. Ideally, your black should be somewhat drier for this. If your black is still super, super wet, you're running a possibility of spreading that into the rest of the painting, which you don't want to do. So make sure your black is somewhat dry before you move to the step. In my case, it's not fully dry, but it is dry enough for me to move forward. You see, it really nicely breaks up that darkness. And I will add just a little bit of that, like a flick on the side of each cattail. See, on the side from the top down, and only on the side that's closer to the sun. Nice. Boat in the background. That sounds awesome. And then, guys, last thing, we're going to add white highlights. So for white highlights, you really need to water it down too. You don't have to water it down as much as black, but just a little bit. So it's a little more liquid. And I'm going to start by flicking a few lines for grass in white as well, just like a little highlight. It doesn't have to be as much as in green. We're not looking for the same amount, just a few is more than enough. Or you can even add a little highlight in white over your green grass. And then I'll add a little flick of that on the green on every cattail. Do you see? I'm adding just a touch. I'm not adding as much as green, but just a little touch. And after that, you can go ahead and sign it with your name or your initials or anything that you want. Yay. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. To answer your question, what time is a wine painting? I will take a look for you. I don't remember if it's 6:30 or 7. It is 7 p.m. Toronto time because we are here in Durham region, so we are on Eastern Daylight Time, I believe. So Toronto time, if you just put what time is in Toronto, you would know what Eastern Daylight Time is. Yeah, so we're on Toronto time. So it will be 7 p.m. that time for the wine painting for those who are interested, and it's on Zoom. And if you can't make it to the actual Zoom, that's okay, because again, all our Zoom events come with pre-recordings as well. So what we do is we pre-record a video tutorial for every painting. So if you can't make it on Zoom, we will send you a link. So usually we send out a link to pre-recording to everyone who got ticket for that event shortly after Zoom event is finished. Usually it's within an hour, but sometimes if it takes us a little longer to either make it or upload it, it could be a couple hours, but usually it's the same night after the event. So if you really want to do it, but you can't make that particular time because maybe you're in a different time zone or you already have plans for that night, you will get a link to pre-recorded tutorial for it. So you can do it from the recording, which is great, great option. All right, guys, now you can also do edges. So as we talked about edges, you can either color match, so make every single color again and color the edge with that, or just take black and color the edge with black. I personally love black because it's going to make all those colors here pop even more, and they're going to be even more contrast and bright and beautiful. So feel free to do that if you want to. Michelle, to answer your question, our Zoom event tickets are $10 Canadian money. So depending on where you live, you will need to see what it is in your currency. Hey, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to ask questions while I'm here, because I'm here to answer all of them for you. Whatever I can help you with, I'll be happy to help. Okay, if you're in New York, you should be on the same time zone that us, and your US dollar is right now much higher than Canadian dollar. So $10 Canadian would be less than that in US dollars. You will need to do the conversion. I'm not 100% sure what it is right now, but Canadian dollar is pretty low right now. Thanks, guys. And subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, because we do go live here about twice a week free on YouTube. So don't miss that. If you subscribe, it will notify you. And if you had fun and you want to say thank you by tipping me, I would never say no to that. It's not an obligation. You don't have to. I'm happy to be here. But if that's your way of saying thank you, I would welcome that. And you can do that through PayPal. I'm going to post a link to PayPal right here in a second. So you're free to use it. All right, tip link is posted. And feel free, I'm going to send you another link, guys, too. I'm going to send you a link to all our upcoming events, Zoom and YouTube free events. We have one, at least one every day. Some days it's Zoom, some days it's free YouTube ones. So feel free to take a look, see if anything catches your eye. And of course, you can click going to those that you like and would like to participate in. All right, so here's the link to all our events. And of course, feel free to show us your results. You can take a photo and you can post it on event page made specifically for this event. If you just click on that link that I sent you, you will see that event that says happening right now. So I'm gonna make a thank you post and you can post in comments there, because right now comments are disabled. And the reason why is because there are a lot of people we find that are just up to no good and they post scam links. So to prevent that, we disable commenting on the events prior to event. But yes, I will make a post that will have comments enabled so you can post all your photos there, because we would love to see them, but no pressure if you would rather not. To answer your question, if you don't have a steady hand to make grass, would I recommend using a stencil? No, because it's A, I've never seen stencil for grass. B, it's really fine lines. Fine lines, I find it's hard to work with a stencil. I would just say go slower. Go really slow. Take your time. Or you can even place your, keep your canvas on an angle that you can place your elbow somewhere. If you place your elbow on a surface, you will find that it's much easier to make lines the way you want if your elbow has support. So I would recommend arrange your sitting and painting area the way that you have an elbow support, and you will find making those lines easier. Karen, if you would like to e-transfer, you can do different email. I'm going to send you email for e-transfer right now. And thank you for asking, and I appreciate your support. Here's the email. So I just added the email in chat. That is email. If you would like to e-transfer, please use that one. And thank you again. I really appreciate it. I know not everyone has PayPal. No, if you do want to do trees, so to answer your question, would you water down brown to do trees? No. Trees only for the branches. So because the tree trunk is thick, you don't need to water down your paint. But when you get to fine branches, yes. Because again, fine lines always water down paint. It's just much easier to use water down paint for anything that needs to be fine. All right, guys, and again, feel free to watch the video or sections of it if you need to go back. If you missed a spot or how it's a certain area, just go back there and rewatch it. It's going to be here on our channel whenever you're ready for it and have time for it. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I had a lot of fun teaching you, and hopefully to see you again. Bye, guys. Enjoy your night.